Are you struggling implementing learning centers in your classroom? Chances are that your learning centers are missing three key components. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you the three key features that your learning centers must have and are probably missing, and thus causing you tremendous stress in this important part of your learning environment. Stay tuned. What's up, educational rock stars? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Farah, and here on my channel I strive to bring actionable tips and strategies for teachers and teacher creatives to use in their classroom or to help grow their edupreneur business. And I also try to sprinkle in a little entertainment from my life as a full-time traveling edupreneur along the way. Learning centers are a critical piece of instruction that all teachers, regardless of grade level, should be utilizing in their classroom. This important tool in your teacher toolbox gives you many opportunities to meet your students on their educational level and meet their educational needs. If you're interested in learning about why you should be using learning centers in your classroom, be sure and check out my video from last week where I shared why you should be using this crucial tool in your classroom. I will leave a link in the description down below. Learning centers, while critical to your learning environment, can be one of the biggest sources of stress for teachers. When I visit classrooms, the most often asked question and help request that I get is, can you please help me with my learning centers? Most of the time when I observe math or literacy blocks, there are three components that are missing from these learning center systems that aren't working. And when they're missing, they can cause so much stress that you are banging your head against a wall trying to figure out why your system isn't working. The first key component that your centers must have is clarity. Clarity for yourself, clarity for your students, clarity in your learning centers is a must. In my early years as a classroom teacher, I was struggling with learning centers. My students were often off task and they weren't completing the activities that I had provided for them in the learning center. My students often interrupted me in my small group instruction to get help with an activity or clarification on structure, on instructions, and they were just frustrated because they could not complete the activities that I had put into the center rotations because there was no clarity in the activities themselves. The problem was that I was providing activities in my center rotations that required a lot of moving parts, and it required my students to basically learn a new game every single day, a new way to complete an activity. They were having to learn that every single day in the center rotations, or even every week when I was changing them out weekly. Another problem with my learning centers was that my centers often contained activities that were based off of skills I was actually teaching on the lesson plan that week, and there was no way my students were going to have any clarity about these skills if they hadn't even been taught the skill yet. I was using my learning centers to do kind of a pre-test and figure out where they were instead of using it for what it should be used for, which is review and enrichment. In order for your centers to have that clarity that mine were missing early on in my career, you are going to have to provide your students with activities that follow some sort of predictable pattern. The most successful learning centers that I have experienced and that I have helped other teachers create have centers in them that follow predictable patterns, maybe only a max of maybe 9 to 10 different types of games that students are going to learn throughout the year, so that you can put games into your center rotations that students already really know how the activity is completed, and all that's really changing is the skill. So maybe instead of addition, you're focusing on subtraction, or maybe instead of antonyms and synonyms, you're focusing on editing or spelling or phonics. But the actual game itself follows the same pattern and follows the same necessary steps in order to complete the activity, and that is what your students are going to need in order to have clarity within their center rotations. You're also going to want to make sure that your centers don't require too many moving parts. Now, it's okay for you to have a center that maybe requires puzzle pieces to be put together to match things or match a question with an answer, or maybe they need to clip an answer, or maybe they need some math manipulatives in order to complete the activity. But you really are going to want to make sure that it doesn't require too many moving parts that your students are going to have to set up. Where I often see this happening is teachers who try to use board games in their centers. Now, I love a good board game, but I never put my board games in my centers because it requires the students to set it up. If they've never played the game before, they have to learn how to play it. But there are some games, some simple games that are perfect for center rotations. In fact, I have a few over in my shop. I'll leave a link down below where you can check out these math games. Making sure that your centers don't have too many moving parts also helps your students complete the activity in the allotted time that you've given them. And when it comes time for cleanup, if there's not too many parts that have to be cleaned up, cleanup is going to be a breeze as well. Now, like I said, the biggest problem that I faced with my learning centers was that I was actually creating and using learning centers for my students that my students were not comfortable with the skills yet, because oftentimes the centers went with what was on my lesson plans for that week, and that was not going to give them any type of ability to be independent when completing these center activities. The problem is that my students had not been introduced to the skill yet, so they didn't have enough background knowledge to be able to complete the skill. And the rule of thumb really should be that your centers should be at minimum a week behind your actual lesson plans, so that you have had the opportunity to actually teach the skill to your students, and given you an opportunity to show your students how to play some of these games beforehand. And one of the ways you might want to do that is either playing the games whole group or playing the types of games that you're going to be putting in your centers in your small group instruction as well. Again, learning centers are a great tool for you to have in your teacher tool belt, and they provide a great opportunity for learning for your students. However, if you don't have clarity in your learning centers, you are going to be causing undue stress on yourself and on your students. Now, clarity is only the first key ingredient. There are two more, and next week I'm going to share with you another key ingredient that you're going to need in order to make sure your learning centers are implemented successfully and you can save your teacher sanity. Now, while waiting for next week's video, I want to invite you to jump over to Learning Centers Made Easy and join the waitlist. This program is designed to show you from start to finish, A to Z, how to implement successful learning centers in your classroom and use the very system that I have used in my classroom for years, and the one that finally allowed me to take back my weekends, take back my sanity, and have functioning, successful learning centers in my classroom. I'll leave a link in the description down below where you can jump over and check it out and join the waitlist to get notified when we open for enrollment the next round. If you're looking for more tips and strategies for your classroom or your teacher creative business, make sure you check out some of those videos on your screen. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you get notified when we go live or upload a new video here on the channel. Thanks for watching, and keep being an educational rock star.